Hey guys, welcome to Soccer Sofa Football Podcast, hosted by myself, the Stod.
And me, the Horse. We're here to take you through lockdown and beyond as we introduce you to a number of ex-players and we'll interview them and hear all about their football journey.
Fantastic. And today, for Season 1, Episode 1, we not only have a legend of the game, we have a manager, assistant manager, coach, player, goalkeeper, a man who's played at Wembley, a man who's been to Wembley. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome our first guests, and I've always wanted to do this. Roll VT! So welcome to Season 1, Episode 1, and we've got our first guest of the season, Kevin Blackwell. Welcome, Kevin. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you very much.
How is Kevin Blackwell dealing with isolation?
I think, like everybody else, a little bit of frustration, knowing that we've got to do it. You know, it's for the greater good for everybody that we're looking after who haven't got our sort of health. But I've been surprised how quickly it's gone for me personally. But I'm a very active sort of person, so being sort of shut in has been, as I say, frustrating.
Well, Kevin, seeing as we've got you for plenty of time in the lockdown, it'd be a great place to start with. What was Kevin Blackwell actually like back at school?
Well, if I'm honest, I wasn't a brilliant student. I always knew that I wanted to be a footballer, and I took my eye off the ball in terms of education. But in all the sports, I was very good. I excelled in all sports for the school and captained everybody and played for the years above me in football, in basketball and rugby and everything. So from that point of view, I loved the school for that. But I didn't concentrate as hard as I should have done on my education, which is quite ironic because later on in life, I've loved education. So much so that I ended up going to Warnock University and doing a diploma at Newcastle University. So it's a complete change round. And if I was to say to young players coming to the game now, we need smart players. It's smart players that we're looking for, believe it or not. And I wasn't the greatest student, but I think I made up for it in later life. And what I would say, if that's the one regret I've got, is that it should have been education. And for me, it was football. Now, people will say you've done quite well out of football, and I have. But when I went back to university there, I didn't realise that I could do the things that I could. So my self-confidence has grown from the fact that I now know, and I now do expert witnesses and I write major reports and everything else, which would have been unbelievable back at school.
Yeah. And then how did the actual route into football start?
Like everybody else, I mean, I was a good young player, and played for my local team, and then got selected to play for the county, and then got selected to play for the school, the county, and then really just got picked up by a scout at a game, came to a game, and asked if I'd like to go for a trial, and I ended up going to Luton. When David Pleat was there, and ironically, the chief scout there was a gentleman called Paddy Sowden, and then Paddy went to Cambridge United to work for a very sort of quiet sort of manager in Ron Atkinson.
Yeah.
So I came across Ron Atkinson, but I went in there. So really, it was just going through the process of school, through the youth football, and then and that's the way I got in.
Yeah. You haven't actually even mentioned your playing position. I think you were a goalkeeper, as Stod alluded to. Weren't you a goalkeeper, Stod?
I was the fat one that was always thrown in goal at the end, yeah.
Yeah. But I clearly, I mean, because I was very good at sports, the reason I ended up being in goal, and I only went in goal when I was 16.
Oh, right.
I was a midfield player, and I was about to go to Man City and Derby for trials when we had a very good youth side, but the goalkeeper was useless. And every time someone took a shot, it was going to the back of the net. But I was playing for my school basketball team the year above me, and it was my father. My father was the manager of the side, St Joseph's Youth, and he said, "Look, Ken, we know, just go and goal for this game, will you?" And I went in goal, and they kept their first clean sheet. And within 6 weeks, I'd gone to Luton on trial. So, but I hated it. I hated every minute of being in goal. I hated the fact that I couldn't get out and affect the game. I hated the fact that I couldn't score goals. I couldn't, and I had many a run-in with my dad over it. But really, it wasn't the normal lad going in goal. It was a late thing.
And but obviously you kind of alluded to it there. There's only one position in goal, so quite often you can be on the bench or number two. How did you sort of deal with that?
Well, as it happens, later on in my career, I ended up being a number two, particularly when we went to Notts County and we went up the divisions into what was then the Premier League. It was the last year of the old First Division, and the following season it was the Premier League. And Steve Cherry was the goalkeeper, and to be fair, Ches was outstanding. I don't mind being a number two to someone who's doing really well. I absolutely hate being a number two when you know you're better than the person who's playing.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I was able to accept the number two's role because we were, as you said, there was only two goalkeepers in the club, and we travelled every game, was on the bench every game, so I was always involved. Now, if you'd have been number two and you couldn't be on the bench, so if you go back in the olden days, there was only one goalkeeper named and three subs, and that wasn't a goalkeeper. I think I'd have found that hard. But the fact that you were travelling and you were still part of everything and training, and even on match days, you'd be on the main stadium and playing, warming up, and I could accept it. But don't get me wrong, the aim of anybody in any sport, in any walk of life, is you must try and be the number one.
Yeah. And I'm kind of doing a loop here back to what you said earlier, but you said about big Ron Atkinson being one of the first major characters in your football career. How was it working under him?
Well, I remember Paddy Soudan bringing me up. I'd gone to Luton Town, and Luton Town wanted me to stay. And Paddy came up to my door one Sunday, about 11 o'clock. It was a knock on the door, and Paddy Soudan was there. He said, "Look, we want to take you to Cambridge United, and I've got a manager I want you to see." I went there, and it was Big Ron, and he was 6'3". He was built like a tank, and his nickname was in football was the Tank. But he had so much charisma, and he had an aura about him, and it was quite strange. And he nicknamed me Magic Hands. And he said, I was only 15 and a half, and he said, "You're going to play in my reserve team against Portsmouth on Wednesday." And I thought he was joking. And he had another goalkeeper there called Yorkie, and it just showed the sort of guy he was. He said to Yorkie, "Listen, if you don't lose a stone by Wednesday," and this was only on the Saturday, "you'll not play against Portsmouth." Well, Yorkie's in trying to lose this weight, bin bag on, sweating it all off. And he lost 3/4 of a stone, to be fair.
Cool.
He didn't play. I played against Portsmouth. And it was just, I loved Ron. He had a warmth about him. He was a man's man. And it was, listen, he went on to West Bromwich Albion, did terrific, and then on to Manchester United, and was a commentator for many years. So yeah. Ron was very much confident, a can-do guy, and that sort of thing was something that rubbed off on me and gave me the belief that when you look at where Ron came from, he came from Kettering. He was a legend at Kettering Town Football Club.
Oh, I didn't know
That's where he was. And he ended up being, the manager of Manchester United. And like I say, someone that when you mention Ron Atkinson, anybody who knows anything about football will know who Ron Atkinson is.
Yeah, definitely.
Listen, lads, do you need a light on? Do I need a light on? Am I too dark? Is this not going to be shown on camera?
We'll probably have the video.
It is going to be on. Do you want to put the light on, Kevin? We can.
Yeah. It makes any difference. Stay there.
Yeah, perfect.
That works.
Is that better? Okay.
It's yeah. So we just before that point, we were talking about Big Ron Atkinson, but you were saying he picked you up when you were 15 and a half. Being an apprentice in the 70s, I imagine it's slightly different to what it's like now. How was your time as an apprentice?
Well, the one thing that was so different is that when the apprentices came in, you all were given jobs to do. You had to do jobs, and that meant sweeping the floors, terracing. It meant cleaning boots. You were just, for the first thing, you were just, someone to run around for them.
Yeah.
But all that time, you should have been watching the senior players, watching what they did, how they trained, who the personalities were, and that sort of stuff. And it was tough. But 2 out of every 10 players, apprentices that come into the game, eight don't make it. Only 2 do.
Yeah.
So
I'm amazed at
the one thing that you go in there is obviously the dreaded end of coming towards the end of your second year on your apprenticeship is whether they're going to keep you or not. You know what I mean? And obviously I've been a youth team manager, and I have to say, as a youth team manager, that is the tough time of the year. You're looking at someone who wants to be a footballer, but they're not going to be good enough. And you can't allow them just to keep ploughing on and getting to 20, 21, 22, still not made it as a footballer. They nailed some sort of career. Listen, at the age of 18, 19 years of age, many of them were let go into and struggled in the real world. I mean, if you take a player, a kid who was leaving school at, say, 16, and for example, say he went to take on a trade, doesn't matter, plumber or electrician or whatever, if he were a professional footballer, at the age of 18, when you were let go, you were going up competing against lads of 16-year-olds who just left school, who knew nothing else. They knew nothing, like you knew nothing if you went into a trade. And unfortunately, many of them would say you're too old, because it was cheaper to take on a kid at 16 than an 18-year-old. You had to pay an 18-year-old pro rata wages, you see. So I wasn't going to pay someone £100 a week, whereas I could pay someone £25 a week who was starting from scratch. So it left many players coming out of football at that age at a significant disadvantage.
I'm going slightly off piste with this question, but are there any that you've let go that have perhaps gone on to do greater things?
No, I can honestly say at this moment in time, there isn't anybody that I've let go that's gone on to greater things. I've let 1 or 2 go, but they've gone on to play at football league level, but maybe lower down, or had a good career in non-league. You know what I mean? So, but nobody that's come back and you've gone, wow, there was the one that escaped. Listen, because I came through that way, part non-league into football as well. I understood what it means to make the grade. And then I studied the game, and then I took the youth players. So I knew all the steps that need to be. And you can see in players who's going to make it. When I had Carl Norton and Carl Walker at Sheffield United, as clear as day they were going to make it.
Yeah.
When I was with Aaron Lennon, James Milner, Scott Carson, all those at Leeds United, they were absolutely going to make it. They were around the first team at 16, 17 years of age. So there aren't too many that are let go and get away. There's 1 or 2, and I know that it's left a few people with a bit egg on their face, but we all grow up at different rates. And sometimes you mature. Some are very early, physically mature at 16, 17, big, strong lads. And then someone mature physically at 20, 21 and go past the lad at 16 who was 17, who was the big boy. And now they become bigger. And then mentally, we've got some who mature at 16, 17, 18, some who actually mature at 18, 19, 20, 21. And then from a football perspective, if you look at Stuart Pearce, for example, Cyril Regis, Chris Waddle, and Peter Beardsley, all people like this, they all matured and got back in or got into the game at 20, 21. Chris Waddle was in a sausage factory. You know what I mean? He needed to go into the sausage factory to know how hard life outside football was, for him to make that mental adjustment into concentrating on the game. And so quite a few people, I mean, Neville Southall. Neville was on the dustbins, wasn't he? And you couldn't talk about better goalkeepers than Big Nev. But but he developed late. That's the beauty of football sometimes.
Well, it's funny you talk about players being let go and they're sort of learning their trade and going out grafting, because am I correct in saying that from Cambridge there was a short period of time where your father made you go and get a trade, so to speak.
Yes, exactly right. My father, I had 3 or 4 friends of mine who were a year older or 2 years older than me. One was a lad called Lawrence Coyne, who was an unbelievable player. And he ended up, Lawrence ended up, he was at Chelsea. He was a Luton boy, he went to Chelsea, and he got let go at 21. And Lawrence struggled for the rest of his career. A lad called Cousins went to Wolverhampton Wanderers, released at 18. Couldn't get a job, found it hard, and they really struggled. And my father didn't want that for me. So he sort of said, I went back to sixth form college to become a games teacher. If I couldn't be a footballer, I was going to be a games teacher. And I quickly realised that there was no money in games teachers. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
being a lad, I'd been highly rated as a player for a long time, and I come from a big Irish background, and the Irish boys had all got building companies, and through the summer they used to give me little jobs, and so if I played for their team, it was lovely. 14, 15 years of age, earning 30 quid a week was unbelievable, was terrific. But I noticed on a Friday that all the big cars turn up on the building sites, and out down came the windows, and out came these brown packets. And I used to say, "What are they doing?" Oh, he said, "They're the subcontractors. They've got all the bricklayers, the carpenters, the electricians, the plumbers." But I said, "I've never seen them work." And I said, "No, they don't work on here. They've got all these lads. They work." And I thought, "Oh, I could do that."
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did. So at the age of 18, 19, I got signed by Boston United for £10,000. And my sign-on fee went to set up a business, and I set up a business. And so really, I went on and had my business for 4 years in the building trade, and then got back into the game professionally after that. So I know, as I said, about the pitfalls of not going into the game early and knowing what it meant. And so that was the reason. And I've got to thank my father for that, really, because otherwise I could have gone into the game, been let go at a really precocious age, and ended up struggling. Thankfully, I didn't.
But during that time, working part-time, having your own business, you also got to play at Wembley twice, for Barnet and for Boston, correct?
Yes, I mean, Barton Rovers was the team in the, I forget what competition it is now, but it's the FA Trophy and the FA Vase. Sorry, FA Vase. And quite by chance, I was, like I say, a local young player, and nobody knew about me. And I got in. Hartwell Berry was the goalkeeper. He'd been through all the tournaments, all the way through. And in the semi-final, the manager Barry Reid put me in. I'd only signed 3 weeks earlier, and I thought I was signing for the following season, because Barton Rovers were the top side in non-league, around the non-league side at the time. And Barry put me into the semi-final against Hungerford, home and away, and we won. And I went to Wembley, and I saved the penalty. And then Ipswich Town came in. It looks like I was going to go on. And then I ended up then signing for Barry Fry, who was manager at Barnet Football Club. And I ended up then going to Boston United, signed for Boston United for money. And then I played at Wembley again. So twice I played at Wembley. I mean, the old Wembley, which was just walking up that slope as you came up to Wembley. You couldn't see the pitch, by the way, until you're about 10 yards coming up to the top. But the fans could start seeing you about 30 metres from the top of the tunnel, and the atmosphere was just electric. And then to walk out, and I remember walking out thinking the World Cup final was played here. I can remember walking out thinking Manchester United won the European Cup here. And it was the same. It was the fencing was the same. The change rooms were the same. And I was 19 years of age when I played there. 19 years of age when I played there. I look back at the photographs now, and I look as though I'm only 12. but the hairs on the back of my head now, just talking about it, it was just such a privilege and such an honour to play at the old Wembley, and with all the history that it held. It's
just every boy's dream to play there.
Yeah.
It's just you've made it. You played at Wembley,
and then to make, I made a penalty save in both games, which I mean, it wasn't until Dave Bessant made the penalty save for Wimbledon against Liverpool, I think, wasn't it, in the FA Cup final, that they talked about penalty saves at Wembley. It was very rare. It was only
your penalty save was a cracking one down to the bottom left.
My save.
Yeah, it was struck hard.
Yes, it was.
Down to the bottom left.
Yeah. You know, I can't remember too much about it, but it was one of those things that, you know, listen, we were 1-0 down at the time. And if we'd have gone 2-0 down early on in the game, I think it was after about 35 minutes, we'd have been a long way back. As it was, we lost 2-1 in the end and made a game of it. But it was a Wimbledon. We played against a Wheelstone side that had Vinnie Jones in it and Steve Clowes and people like that. So it was a good side, very good side.
Yeah, cool.
But I had to say that we had, you know, it was listen, just absolutely magical, as you said, because football had a different feeling to it, I think, then than it has now.
Yeah.
There was money's brought a lot of good things into the game, but it's also not the hunger that was there and the desire that was there, and it just doesn't seem to be there as much as it was. I could be wrong, but it doesn't feel like that. And then to walk out at the hallowed turf of Wembley, it was just, I couldn't sleep the night before the finals. And I remember walking around Wembley at one point, and because we were near a hotel, and just dreaming that I'd be there the following day. It was just, just a boy's own dream.
Amazing memories. And you obviously made an impression in that game and during those seasons, because eventually you were scouted and you made a move, which I think was a career-defining move, if I may say so myself, up to Scarborough to go and join someone who described you as, and I quote, the last piece in the jigsaw. And that was Neil
I'm not
Moore.
sure when he signed me that he thought that, but it proved to be the case in the end. And that was obviously going to Scarborough. Ironically, I had a major accident on the building site. I'd gone on to pay the wages. I was now the boy in the big car with the wages. I turned it around after 5 years. And I'd gone onto the site and I was just showing an apprentice something that he'd done wrong. And I turned around and slipped on the scaffold and had 60 stitches, in my thigh. And I just signed for Barnet again. I just left Boston United and gone to Barnet, and Barry Fry was the manager, and I was out for 4 months, and they signed someone else. And it was the year Barnet had set off with flying. At that time, I was recognised as maybe the best goalkeeper, or one of the best two goalkeepers in non-league football. And I got this massive injury, and it meant I couldn't play. But Barnet started off on top of the league. Now, Barry said there was no way they were going to let me go to a club. I wanted to play. I was getting fit again now, and I wanted to play. But they were winning every week, so I couldn't get in. And I said, I want to go and play. But the club wouldn't let me go and sign for another club that was local to them, because it was the last thing they wanted. So they thought, Scarborough in the northeast. And I thought, I live in London. So we, ironically, on the Saturday, the pre-Saturday, we'd gone up to Scarborough, and I'd started travelling with the first team because I was getting fit again now, and I could do some training before the game. And the manager, Neil Warnock, came over, and he said to me, why aren't you playing? And I showed him the scar on my leg. It was a massive scar. Oh, blah, blah. Anyway, on the Thursday night, we're training, and a phone call goes, and Barry Fry says, listen to Eddie Steen. Look, you take the team, he said, and keep training. I've got to take Kevin with me to. And I thought that was strange. There's a phone call coming at 7 o'clock. We need you to speak to the manager. So I went home. Well, who is it? He said, it's Neil Warnock. I'd never heard of him, but I knew he was the manager of Scarborough. I said, well, I'm not going to answer the phone, Barry, because I'm not going to go. I'm a London boy. I'm not going all the way up to the northeast. Anyway, the phone rings and rings and rings for about 10 minutes. And then Neil Warnock, somehow he said, look, you've got to speak. So I just spoke to him out of courtesy. And that was the worst thing I did. Because the minute I spoke to him, he sold the job. Come for a month. And I went for a month, and it turned out to 35 years I've been with him. And I went there on the 6th of November, 1986, and we never lost a game till the last game of the season, or second last game of the season. And by then, when I'd gone to Barnet, when I left Barnet were top of the league, and Scarborough were 15th in the league. And then we got automatic promotion and created history, because it was the first time ever in football history that automatic promotion from the non-league into football league occurred. And I got player of the year, and we went into the football league. And that was the time then I had the big decision. Do I turn it into a career, or do I follow my dream? And too many people in life look back and say, I could have been this, I could have been that. And I'm a great believer in doing things. And I didn't want people saying to me, or me sitting on a bench when I'm 70 years of age, I could have played. No, you couldn't. Did you do it? No, well, do it. If you've got an opportunity to do something, do it. Because you'll never have regrets afterwards. Now, whether you make it or whether you don't make it, at least you know I was either good enough or I wasn't. But for all those that would have, could have, should have, no. Grab your life and you make the decisions and you make those opportunities for yourself.
And it was a good job you took that opportunity. And it, you know, people would say Warnock gave it to you. People would say you took it. It doesn't matter. Either way, you then went with Warnock on a strange journey through Notts County, Torquay, Plymouth, Huddersfield, Bury and Sheffield United. But by that time, you'd gone from playing to player coach. And by the time you got to Sheffield United, you were assistant manager to Neil Warnock. How was that journey?
It was quite, I mean, I obviously joined Neil in 86, and I don't know whether he thought I was a lucky omen for him or not, I don't know. But we had phenomenal success. And we'd gone from Scarborough, and then Neil went to Notts County, and they were then in the old third division. And I joined, he went in around about the February time, and I joined in the summer. And that following year, we got promoted to the second division, which is now the Championship. And then the next season, we got promoted to the Premier League, which was the first division then. And, you know, even though I didn't play hardly at all at Notts County because of the former Steve Cherry, we had a great working relationship, you know, and it was a strange thing, even though, like I said, I wasn't playing that much at the time. I was number two. He was a bloke. I'd admired him as a manager. The very first time I met him, he inspired me. Do you know what I mean? Now, our careers intertwined. I then went on loan to Torquay, and then Neil left Notts County and was in a conundrum what to do. And someone said, could I get him to go to Torquay? And I said, well, listen, I'll have a chat with him. I doubt it, because he's coming really from the Premier League down to the fourth division. And Torquay were bottom of the league. We're going out of the Football League. So there's no way would I thought he'd have taken the club into the Football League to then be the first one to take one in and one out. Well, I'll tell you what, he came down and we saved them. They never got relegated. Unbelievable. So the last 3 months of the season, he came down, and once again, and then we went to Huddersfield from Torquay. And so we'd saved Torquay from a certain relegation. And then we went to Huddersfield and then took them to promotion. And once again, moved together. And then I ended up started then doing my badges. And I'd gone to Huddersfield now as the youth team coach and ended up being the reserve team goalkeeper. And I ended up playing another 15 or 30 games, I think. And we get to Wembley again. I didn't play at Wembley, so on the bench this time in the Ultra Glass Trophy. And then the following season, we went there in the playoff final and won. So once again, I ended up being youth team coach on the first team, playing games, playing for the reserves. So my playing career was extended longer than I thought. You know what I mean? So I was lucky in that respect. And then we then went on from Huddersfield then down to Plymouth. And I'd retired then. I was set up a whole new youth development system down in the West Country called PAYD, Plymouth Argyle Youth Development Division. And we had training centres in all over the place, Tiverton, Taunton, down in Newquay, Penzance, whatever. And within 12 months, we won the South West Counties League, the first time that Argyle had won it in 25 years. And so I set up a development programme. And then, but after 6 weeks of being at Plymouth Argyle, I find myself back in the first team and play 38 games and we get promoted again. So it was just strange. Every time I went with him, and it just something seemed to happen. And we believed in each other then. And that really meant that we went on and on and on and on till we got to Sheffield United. And then had, you know, unbelievable times with them. Yeah, and that led to me, I'm sure the question is about going to Leeds United, about why I left Neil. I'm sure that's
stolen my question.
You've teed that one up about Peter Reid calling you. I was reading his book, and in there it says that when he went for Kevin Blackwell, he'd never actually met you before. And he said that he just heard about this coach and he read all about what you'd been doing and obviously the accolades at Sheffield United, but it was quite acrimonious. I mean, Peter Reid in his book and in interviews plays it down. What actually happens when you move to Leeds United?
Well, at the time at Sheffield United, we the 2003, 2002, 2003 season, we played in every game that a professional club could play in, bar two, and that was the League Cup final and the FA Cup final, because we went on to play in the playoff final. We played 64 games that season, and we were beaten. We beat, I think, 9 Premier League sides in all the cup competitions, and ironically beating Leeds United twice in the quarterfinals of the League Cup and the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, and only succumbed to Liverpool in the semi-final 2 legs in the 95th minute, and took Arsenal to they beat us 1-0. But that was the game that David Seaman created his greatest ever save in his career from Paul Pescasolido's header, and we were fantastic. And so at the end of the season, I'm back home, and I'm up a ladder painting some guttering or a soffit up the top of this, and the phone goes. So I come all the way down the phone, and the fitness coach who was with us, called Dean Riddle, said, "You're going to get a phone call from Peter Reid. It's Leeds United." And I thought he was taking the mickey. He said, No, Peter Reid's going to ring you. Anyway, I go back up the ladder. Well, within 2 minutes, the phone rings, and I come back down again, and it's Peter Reid. But I thought it was someone messing around with a Scouse accent. But anyway, so I then spoke. The reason that it upset Neil was that Neil felt that I'd found out before him, and that I should have told him. But I said to Neil, as far as I knew, Terry Robinson, who was the chief, who was our chairman at Sheffield United at the time, Peter Reid spoke to Terry Robinson, and I thought Terry Robinson had already spoke to Neil. So it was a little bit of miscommunication, but there was no way at that time. I mean, Leeds United in the season before had got to the semi-final of the Champions League and only got lost out 2-1 to Valencia. And they had, you're talking some great players there: Alan Smith, Paul Robinson, David Batty. And I just thought it was a career move I had to take. So I took it. But Neil, let's say, for me, read it the wrong way. And listen, I think, felt that he, and quite rightly so, he helped me on my career all the way through. And he earned the right for me to give him the phone call. But I thought that has already been taken care of. Otherwise, I didn't realise that Peter Reid couldn't speak to me if it wasn't already agreed that they could speak to me. You know what I mean? So, and I tried to ring Neil, but I couldn't get hold of him for whatever. It was the summer, so Neil could have been away or whatever. And it was just one of those things. And everything was happening so quick. Phone call here, phone call there, this, that. And within a day, But it was sort of agreed. The out shape of the deal was done, but it wasn't concluded. And then that really was it. I then went to Leeds United, and without the blessing of Neil, and it led to 8 years. Was it 9 years? I think it was 10 years. I was away, and it was a shame really, because if I needed help, surely he was the man I could have turned to, but I wasn't able to really to ask him his opinion on things when I needed it. And but like I say, that's how it all happened.
I mean, that leads us on to the next big question about your job as the Leeds manager. You touched on they'd been semi-final Champions League, then they had the financial problems, and then from my memory serves me right, you took them over in the Championship, trying to rebuild. And I think we found that you signed 70 players over your time as Leeds United manager. Could you talk us through that time?
Well, to be fair, I was surprised I signed as many as that, but I knew. I mean,
got out stats.
I took over Leeds the last couple of games in the Premier League, and the last game was Chelsea away, and then because Eddie Gray had resigned, a couple of games to go, he knew the club was down, and at that time, I think our debt was about 114 million. So it was the biggest debt in football history. And it was quite, the club was in such a terrible state. I've never known anything like it. Every Friday, the company would go back to the PLC, which was based down in London, and we had to get the license to keep trading as a PLC company. And every Friday they'd go down, every fortnight you have to go down, apply for the licence, and yeah, you can carry on, because they thought they could try and get a buyer for it or do something. But then came the Friday that we were all sitting in the canteen, and it says Leeds United now have lost their PLC status, and that meant we were in administration. So It was a real shock, and then the whole place was just in a bad way, and I've never known anything like it. And I took a lot of lessons from that, and that helped me in my career, because I've taken on some real dire situations at clubs that have gone bankrupt. And so at the end of the season, they then obviously were looking for a new manager, and then they asked me to apply for it, and I took the job on. And I remember the first close season, it was about selling players, and every day they rang me up and said, right, well, we've sold Alan Smith to Man United, Mark Viduka's gone to Middlesbrough, James Milner went to Newcastle, Paul Robinson's gone to Tottenham, Aaron Lennon's gone to Tottenham, he's gone in. It was just unbelievable, out, and all of a sudden I was just getting players in, just trying to get players in, and knowing that we were red-hot favourites to get relegated again out of the Championship. Red-hot favourites. And I knew my first task was to make sure we didn't slide through the next trapdoor. And I trialled people. I had people like Brian Dean. Brian Dean was on 400 quid a week. Steve Guppy, who'd been at Leicester and had a great career. Gups was on 250, 300 quid a week.
Wow.
It was just,
really.
And I can't thank them enough. They came and did jobs for the club, and they were Leeds United. You're at Leeds United on 300 quid a week. Unbelievable. And somehow stabilised that season. We worked extremely hard as a staff to try and to stay up. And then Ken Bates came in about Easter time, and it looked like obviously I was going to go. He was going to bring in Dennis Wise because that was his man. But I kept winning games towards the end of the season, and he couldn't change it. And then, to be fair to Ken, he put or wangled a little bit of money somehow. We signed Rob Holtz, Rob Healy. We signed about 4 or 5 players, and the season started slowly, but we gradually built momentum up to become really. I mean, that was a season I think that Reading and Sheffield United, in the first 20 games, were about 20 points ahead of everybody. They'd run away with it, and Reading won the league. But we then came up as the only club that could catch them, and. So, yeah, we had some, that was the season I think we went to Southampton, for example. And that was really the catalyst, I think, around about the end of September, beginning of October. And we're 3-0 down with 18 minutes to go. And we win 4-3. And I remember Chris Moyles being the Radio 1 DJ at the time. And he kept playing it every day for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It was terrific. But... obviously then turned Leeds around and then got them to the playoff final against Watford.
Yeah. I mean, a question I'm sort of dying to ask you amongst some of those. What were your greatest signings during those times with all those comings and goings? Who really sticks in the memory?
Well, there was, for different reasons, people were good signings. I knew that when at Leeds United, everybody wants to beat Leeds United.
Yeah.
And we talk about stats, but that season, every team that we played, they lost the following 2 or 3 games after that. About 80% of teams lost the next games after playing Leeds United.
Yeah.
I remember going to Sheffield Wednesday, and Paul Sturrock was the manager, and he said, Kev, you've got to listen to the roar of the Cop. And they were, Sheffield Wednesday were having a bad season. They were fantastic against Leeds United. I said, listen, Paul, why aren't they like that every week? It's because it was Leeds United. So I signed players who I knew had to try and deal with the Championship, trying to be the team that everybody's trying to roll over, that they would give 110%. And I signed the ex-captain of Wolverhampton Wanderers called Paul Butler.
Yes, I remember him.
And he was an absolute leader. And I needed strength of characters because, believe you me, the stick that Leeds players got from away fans, and knowing that the Leeds fans had had 2 years of absolute rubbish, it wouldn't take much for them to turn and criticise players. I then signed Sean Gregan, and then another big, strong character who you would, if you were going to war, you'd want him beside you, as with Butler. And I just put together a real manly side, and then add a little bit of creativity with the likes of Robbie Blake, and then David Healy, and then as we were getting on the following season, we were getting a bit more successful. We got the likes of Rob Holtz in, and Creswell and people like that. So they were all signings that were relevant at the time I signed them, what they were there for. And then obviously, just before I left, that I knew then I had to make more changes because now we've got to the level we were at. We now need to make the next lot of changes to bring the team on again, but unfortunately that didn't sort of work out. But yeah, so that they were. I'd signed Neil Sullivan, the goalkeeper, who was at Wimbledon. And Sully,
great signing.
Sully was a great signing. I looked at the back four and I thought we need strength of character. So I had Butler. Then we had some young players coming through called Kilgallen, Fraser Richardson, who went on to Southampton. Kilgallen went on to Sheffield United, signed for Sheffield United in the Premier League, and then went on to play for Sunderland in the Premier League and that. So we had some good youngsters as well. I had Aaron Lennon on the right-hand side early on, before I had to send him to Tottenham. So we had sort of some youngsters and some real experience, and that's really how we got through to that first season. And then the following season, like I say, we then got the basis of the team, and I added one or two more to take us to the final.
Yeah, and that, of course, you built a bit of a reputation of rebuilding clubs, and your next club was Luton, again, that I think was, your hometown club, and dealing with a lot of debt. What was it like going back home? Well,
obviously, I remember being a young kid down in the playing fields, and my dad used to come home from BAC. He was an engineer, and but every Saturday he always has to fix the car. It was a rubbish car. It was always broken. But I could hear the roar of Kenilworth Road. Yeah. So we knew when Luton scored. And we lived about 2 or 3 miles away, cross country a little bit. And if the wind was right, you could hear the roar. And then there I was now taking over my hometown club. And don't forget, I started at Luton Town as a young kid.
Yeah.
So there I came back. But it was one of the saddest times in my career because it was my hometown club. I'd got aims and aspirations for it, and I wanted it to be better than it was. And because I'd been at bigger clubs, I knew what the top people were doing. And I wanted to bring that to Luton. Only to find out I'd been there 3 months and the club went into administration.
Wow.
No money. And I couldn't believe it. And I'd signed players. They dropped out of the Championship and I took over. And then I had to get rid of a load of players who were massive wages. It was badly run. The club was badly run from the top. And the debts were, for a club like Luton, 8-10 million was substantial, but not massive. And it meant then, once again, I had to sign a load of players. Paul Furlong was on £500 a week. Who played in midfield? He played for Liverpool in midfield. What was his name? Oh, Don Atkinson.
We can't talk about Liverpool, but Don also played for Everton, so we can talk about him now.
Yeah. So Don was on £200 a week. You know what I mean? But Don was 38 then, and his legs were gone, but he still had a brain. And I just wanted him around to help the youngsters that we got. So Luton,
footballer Don Hutchison.
Oh, Don could play. Don could play. He could ping a ball. He could hit a pass. And like I say, so there I was now sitting at a club, my hometown club. And from the 1st of October, none of the people got paid a penny until the 27th of January. And in that time, we'd gone 19 games unbeaten and took Liverpool to a replay in the FA Cup. And we brought into the club something like £2.4 million through TV deals. And then after Liverpool first came, I had to sell Dave Edwards, Coyne, Berkovic, all the players that could be sold were sold. So that was, for me then, the administrator was in charge and he'd sold a couple of players behind my back. And I asked him, let me have the players to the second leg against Liverpool because Rafa was under massive pressure. And it was, I remember going up there with Luton. Luton took 9,000 up there. They were on a Tuesday night. And I remember him saying that the game felt like a European night. Rafa was on, if Luton had got any result, it looked like Rafa could lose his job.
Yeah. And
there was 52, it was a complete sellout. And the atmosphere was electric. And we get to half time and the goalkeeper had to play with Dean Brill. He had a torn hamstring and he had to play because we couldn't have anybody. And it was sad, really. But we lost 5-0 in the end. And I resigned before the game and told the administrator that I couldn't sit by and watch my hometown club you do the deals that he was doing. He sold 3 players that I know I could have got double the money for because I knew other clubs were interested in them and he'd done a deal. So that for me wasn't right. And I resigned. And after the Liverpool game, I left the club.
When did you tell the players? I take it after the game.
I told the players the week before that I would fight for them. I paid a couple of players their mortgages. Wow. They had no wages, And the only reason I got them some wages in the end of January is because we had the FA Cup run. And I said to them, you can't tell me, because I knew that we're getting £750,000 for each game that was live on Sky. Now, normally a lower league club, they'll have Liverpool at Luton. Sorry, yeah, they'll have Liverpool at Luton because there's a chance that Luton might do something.
Yeah,
but they'll not have Luton at Liverpool because that's a foregone conclusion. But we were that good, and it was such an exciting tie that Sky took it live again on the Tuesday. So they got another 750,000, and then they got a cut of the 52,000 that were there. So it was just, that's what upset me. But and they were saying to the players, you can't have any money. And we beat Nottingham Forest in the round before. It was a sellout at Kenilworth Road. So there was money there to pay players over Christmas. And they never paid them a penny. And yet the administrator was taking his money. And that's the things in football that hurt. So,
yeah,
it's
the middleman.
It is what it is.
So obviously we're still in your frontline management roles here. And your next one was Sheffield United, taking over from Brian Robson. What was it like going to Bramall Lane, another huge club?
Well, as I said, I've been there for 5 years previously, then gone to Leeds United, and then I came back, and I was actually going to go back and as assistant to Brian Robson. I'd left Luton, and within 4 weeks, I got a phone call. Kev, would you come back? We'd like you to come back to help Brian. And as I'm driving up to Sheffield to have a chat, they said, look, Brian's left. Will you take the team? They just dropped out of the Premier League. And they were third from bottom. And that was on the 18th or the 20th of February. And they got 14 games left. And they spent heavily on the team and signed big players in to get them back up straight away. And it had failed. And so I went there and we lost 2 games out of 14.
Yeah.
And we missed the playoffs by 1 point.
You did end up in the playoffs against Burnley, wasn't that?
No, that was in the following season. So we missed out on the playoff by 1 point, and that's a fact. At one point in the last game of the season, we were away at Southampton. We were 1-0 up. We were in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And from the 14th of February, where we were third from bottom, it would have been an unbelievable achievement to get there. But as it was, it set us a good base for the following season. And the following season, we had the likes of James Beattie, who all of a sudden just flourished again, was scoring loads of goals.
Yeah.
Paddy Kenny in goal.
Yeah.
Gary Speed, God bless him. Hugo Ekiog. We had Gary Naismith from Everton.
Jagielka, was he on the scene yet?
Yeah, they were there. So, but then I had to obviously change things through the summer and get rid of 1 or 2. And then we actually went on, and unfortunately, because we were doing that well, all of a sudden the interest came in for the players, and Beats got signed by Stoke City, and Michael Tong got signed by Stoke City. And I know we're going to talk about maybe transfer deadline days, but they came in at the last minute, meaning that they left us with nowhere to go. And because the club had come out of the Premier League the year before, had spent heavily, and then didn't get up, even though I'd got them just within close to the playoffs, that they were still hemorrhaging big money. And they decided to cash them in. And we then got to the last game of that season, and it was a 3-way tie between Reading, Birmingham and Sheffield United. And we were a point behind Birmingham. Reading were a point behind us. And but Reading were playing Birmingham, and we were playing Crystal Palace. And the manager of Crystal Palace was Neil Warnock, ironically. But that day, Birmingham went to Reading. If Birmingham had drawn at Reading, we'd have gone up. But as it was, they won. So Birmingham went up. Right. And then we went to the playoffs, and we beat Preston over 2 legs in the playoff and got to the final again. And that was the final against Burnley.
Right. And unfortunately, you lost that final. I mean, that must be pretty hard to take, because you got to the finals with Leeds as well, the playoff finals. How do you go about bouncing back from that?
That was the Leeds one was horrible. It was horrible. I mean, ironically, 3 years earlier, I'd been in the playoff final for Sheffield United against Watford. Against Wolves.
Yeah.
And we'd lost that one. And then I went to Leeds and we lost that one. And then got Burnley 3 years later. We lost that one. There is a place to lose.
Yeah.
That isn't.
Yeah,
that is not the place to lose, because on that day, it's all about the winner. It's just about the winner.
Yeah.
And no one remembers it, but it has a serious health warning for you as a manager if you lose major finals. And arguably, you know, that cost me my jobs ultimately in the end because I didn't get them into the Premier League.
Yeah. Huge amounts of money on the line as well, of course. And I might be stealing Stodd's question here, but I've got to get it in there. Transfer deadline day, you touched on there some of the comings and goings. Is it what we're led to believe it is by the media, or I mean, is it?
It's a nightmare.
It's
an absolute nightmare. Yeah, you're on the phone. Up until recently, it's been 12 o'clock, but recently it's now at 5 o'clock on one of the last days. So, but you will be there at 12 o'clock in the office at 12 o'clock, and you're walking. I remember walking out when Michael Tom went to Stoke City, and myself and my assistant Sam Ellis just up at the restaurant, and we're thinking it's 10 o'clock. We're going to get something to eat. There's nobody going to come, and we're sitting in the restaurant. 10:30, 10:45, phone goes, and it's Tony Pulis from Stoke City. We want to sign Michael Tom, £3.5 million. Well, so we sort of spluttered, had to leave the food on the table, run back to the office. I had to speak to Michael Tom because I couldn't deny him the opportunity to go to the Premier League. Look, Tommy, what do you want to do? He said, look, I'd like to go. So I said, look, you better get in your car. And he had to drive from Manchester to Stoke inside an hour.
Cool.
And, unbelievable. We had that happen. James Beattie was another one. Carl Walker, we'd sold to Tottenham. I'd taken him back on loan. And then in the January, Harry decided to take him back. And it was the 5 o'clock deadline. And Harry's decided to take him back at 10:05. And we're travelling on the bus to play Watford.
Yeah.
So that was on a Monday night. And on the Tuesday, we were playing Watford. He was on the bus. And I couldn't tell. So we pulled up at the hotel and I had to pull him and say, look, you've got to go back to Tottenham. Now, those things. So, is it bedlam? It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
I hate every minute of it. I hate all the summer transfer window because it's from the end of the season till the end of the deadline day, your phone's ringing all the time. There's agents trying to put players in. There's players who are trying to get away. It's so disruptive. But from a manager's point of view, it's an absolute nightmare because you're never sure that at the start of the window to the end of the window that you're going to have your players there.
Yeah.
I mean, I never expected to lose Tongi or Beats or something. Never expected to lose Carl Walker or any of them. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting at the end of the transfer window and I've lost 3 of my best players.
Yeah.
You know, and in the following season, the following season, I lost Paddy Kenny, who went to QPR, and it meant that season. So that was 2 days before the season kicked off, and I couldn't get a goalkeeper. And in the end, we ended up throughout the season loading 5 goalkeepers. So it just puts too much pressure on you, and I hate it. I hate every minute of it.
Just a quick one: best buy and best sell. I know that best sell might be not very.
Well, I mean, if you're going to say sell, I mean, the lad Dave Edwards was signed from Shrewsbury for 127,000. He was one of the players at Luton Town that went against my wishes, but we sold him for 1.3 million inside 4 months. So that's a decent turnover if you're going to look at it. But in terms of best signings, I mean, I looked at that and I thought a lot of the times I wouldn't, because I've not been able to sign, although you say 70 players there, really good players. I've been able to sign, but the players that have come off for me, Paddy Kenny was one.
Yeah.
We got from non-league, and he went on to the Premier League. Who else did we have here? Best players. I mean, it's a difficult one because sometimes you look at the signings that you make, and sometimes it's the players that you've got there that have been bombed out that they're like a signing.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And all of a sudden they come to Kilgallen was a classic. Where I tell you, it was a classic. It was Greg Halford.
Yeah, I remember him.
Remember, Greg was going to be a superstar player. He was 6'3", an athlete, could throw the ball a mile. He was the best. You could run, you could sprint. And everybody was talking about it. And he started at Colchester and then went to Reading for 3 million, then to Sunderland for 3 million, and failed there. And I took him to Sheffield United and completely turned his career around. And he was fabulous for us that year. He played centre half, centre forward, right back, left back. He was unbelievable. He played in goal, I think, for one game. He was unbelievable. And then Wolves bought him for big money. So there is a lot of players who've come through that have done well for me, but I wouldn't say there was anybody, when you make big money like you do on Dave Edwards, I mean, you're tripling, quadrupling your money. But that's not really what I wanted to do, because I thought I could have got $2.5 million for him, to be fair, because I knew Wolves were dead keen on him. And I thought if we could get through the Liverpool replay, I could ask to sit, but as it was too late.
And I think it's my last. I know I'm hogging the airtime at the moment, but of course the next job was Bury, and I look at your CV and going to Bury, who would have been a League One club at the time. I think that was a huge appointment for them, attracting you down there. How was your time at Bury?
Well, I remember the situation at Torquay United with Neil. And people said he's not going to go there, but he went there and just proved the point again. And I thought that was me. That was my Bury moment, or my Torquay moment at Bury. So I went to Bury, but the reason that they chased me for about 3 months, and I'd said no, I didn't want to go. But then what happened was they said to me, look, we're going to let you run all the football. You can run the football from top to bottom, and no interference from us. You can develop the players. You do all the new training facility. You can do this. You can do that. And I thought, you know what? I've never had the opportunity where I could dictate everything from the football side. And so I went up there, and we started off, they were second from bottom of the league, I think. And in the first 8 games, we were out of the relegation zone. I'd taken 3 loans in, ironically 2 from Leeds that Neil let me have. And I took 1 from Leicester City, and I took 2 from Wolves, all young lads. And one of them was Matt Doherty, who's a revelation, as we now know, at Wolves at right back. And I took him in, and all of a sudden we were starting to go, and we were now, I think, we 6th from bottom. And then we were playing Preston in an Autoglass Trophy game, and the game was rained off. So the board of directors said, "Can we see in the boardroom?" So look, Kevin, on Thursday, this was on the Tuesday, on the Thursday, we're going to take a £750,000 loan from the PFA, which means we're going into administration.
Wow.
And I went, hang on a minute. I said, I've been here 6 weeks. Surely, and you're going to, surely you must have known that 6 weeks ago. And one of the directors there said, look, if we'd have told you, would you have come? I said, no, I wouldn't have come, because I'd had that at Luton, and I'd had that at Leeds, and I'd had it at Sheffield United. No, I didn't want any more of that. And he said, that's exactly why we didn't tell you. And I looked at him and I said to him, and you're proud to say that to me. And from that moment onwards, my time at Bury was, every player that we had loaned had to go back.
Yeah. And
if it wasn't for Gary and Phil Neville and Nev Neville, God bless him, the club was finished that season. It was gone. They paid, Gary and Phil helped pay the wages.
Right.
And and then we got to the end of the season, and then the players never got paid again until the following pre-season when they sold it to the new owner called Mr. Stuart Day, which is obviously then subsequently led to the club, being sold on or given to some other fella from Stuart, and it's now finished as a football club.
Yeah.
So if, like I say, the Nevilles were renowned for Bury and supporting Bury, and one of the attractions of going to Bury for me was because it was in the northwest, and it's a football hotbed up there. You've got all the Liverpool clubs. You've got all the, the Bolton. There was Wigan. There was loads of clubs, all within 50 miles. You had, I think it was 27 clubs. Well, I knew I could wheedle and deal, and I could get. It's not like being down in Torquay where 27 miles from Torquay, there's just rabbits and horses.
There's the mighty Yeovil.
Well, listen, how far is Torquay from Yeovil? But it's about 80, 90 miles, isn't it?
2 hours, local derby.
It is, but the fact is, you're talking about not being able to get players down there.
Yeah, we have the problem.
And I knew, and once again, listen, when I got to Bury, and I'd say them 6 loan players from Wolves, it was working.
Yeah. To summarise this, Kevin, what you're actually saying is that everything is better up north. Yeah, is that actually what you're saying?
What I would say is there's no doubt for me, the Northwest is one of the hotbeds of football in the country, without question. But and to be part of that and to go to Manchester was it was a challenge that I thought I could. And like I say, it was gone after 6 weeks, and that's what really, really upset me. And I spoke to a couple of people, Steve Bruce, Fergie, Sir Alex Ferguson, and they said, Blackie, you've got to stay. You've got to try and stay there now you've gone there. You know what I mean? And that's what upset me. They put me in a position where I had no chance. I didn't think that was right, and I'll never forgive them for it.
Well, then the next stage in your career came, because in 2012 you took a little bit of a break from football, and then 2014 you got a phone call from an old friend. How did that work when you went back with Neil Warnock?
Yeah, well, in that time, yes, at Crystal Palace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, in that time, I'd gone abroad. I was doing stuff abroad and just further education, making sure that for the next opportunity,
Barcelona and Inter and Lazio and places when you're going to look.
I've been, I'd previously been to Sao Paulo in Brazil and Juventus, and so I've been to some, big clubs and looked around and gone to Sweden. So a phone call came out of the blue, and it was Neil, and he just got to Crystal Palace, and he said, "Look, Blackie, we've been phenomenally successful, and look, this is my last job, and I'd like you with me." And I said, "Fair enough, okay." And we had a chat about the previous 8 years. Went there, and I went there like as a consultant to Neil. So I didn't go in as a coach, whatever, but I was a consultant, and I'd then go and look at the teams that we were playing, and then on the Friday I'd come in and then I'd just set up the opposition, strengths and weaknesses. This is what we need to look for, and really that's what it was. And Neil then lost his job on the other side of Boxing Day. They lost home to Southampton, and Steve Parish, the chairman, came in and said to Neil and the other coach that was there, I think Ronnie Jepson, and just said, "Look, I want you to go." And I got up and I was walking out, and he said to me, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, obviously, you want me to go as well with Neil?" And he said, "No, we want you to stay." He said, "The lads here all think you know what you're doing, and we'd like you to stay." But I said, "It's not. I can't." I said, "I've only just spoken to Neil now after the last 8 years, and I'm not, I'm not going to jeopardise that now." So I said, "Look, I'll stay to see you through to the next manager, which was Alan Pardew." I said, "I'll stay there, and then but I'd like to go." And to be fair, Steve Parish was good about it, and they allowed me to leave. And then that was in the January. So I left. Neil went at the end of December. I went at the end of January. And then February came, and we had an offer to go to Rotherham Football Club. And they were...
Just about to say, Neil's last ever job then went with you to QPR, Rotherham.
Sorry. There we are. See, I forgot about QPR, but you're right. So I'll tell you what it was. So that's right. No, that was in January. That's right. No, we never went. We went to QPR actually in December, the following December. And I was in Morocco with one of my ex-chairmen, Terry Robinson, who used to be part of the English FA. And we were delivering a course or a seminar in Morocco. And the phone call, we were in this Casbah, and the phone rings, and it's Neil. He says, "Blackie, I need you back here. We're at QPR Monday morning." And we got back on the plane. We were coming back at the weekend. And we went to QPR, and we only had about 6 games there, but we never lost one. And we'd got them all already. So they were now 1 point outside the playoffs with 21 games to go. And we had the likes of Charlie up top.
Charlie Austin.
Yeah, Charlie Austin up top. And we had Nedum Manora. We had good players there. Rob Green in goal. Yeah. And all of a sudden, it was whole place was going. But for some reason, they appointed Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, and the players weren't happy at all. And in actual fact, they went 17 games, I think, and never won a game. So, and then at February time, we went to Rotherham, and they were third from bottom, 9 points adrift with 12 games to go.
Yeah,
and it was one of the greatest escapes ever. We had 10 of the top 12 to play in the 14 games. And the other 2 teams were Milton Keynes, MK Dons, who were around us at the time. And we were in the Championship, and we had Middlesbrough to play, Derby to play, West Brom, all the top boys to play. And we turned them around, and with 3 games to go, we kept them safe. And that was one of the best jobs we have ever done. And the atmosphere at the New York Stadium at Rotherham was special. I remember playing Leeds United, and we've gone 1-0 down, and all of a sudden we've gone 2-1 up, and the place is absolutely rocking. And it was a special time. And I remember pulling Neil in after the game into the office. I said, "Listen, Neil, we've done all that we've done, but what we've just achieved here is special." Yeah. And I remember when we got promoted with Cardiff, Steve Bruce was manager at Aston Villa, and Bruce said, "Look, it's no surprise that what these two have done at Cardiff, because even the job they've done at Cardiff pales to the job they did at Rotherham." And so that really led on. Then we were at Rotherham, and then we didn't sign at Rotherham. We kept him up, and we let someone else take over, and then ended up going to Cardiff.
And that takes us to sort of your last job. So you're at Cardiff with Neil, and in the season, obviously Cardiff ended up going down, but in the winter or the January transfer window, the big story was obviously Emiliano Sala and the fact that you guys had signed this new striker from Nantes, and then obviously the terrible accident. What was it like at Cardiff, and how much could Emiliano Sala have turned that club, not around, but have kept you up that season? Because it sent the club into turmoil.
Well, for a club that was in turmoil, it was only the second last game of the season that they went down. The lads really, we were red hot favourites to go down. I know we were the butt of many a joke, and I remember the striker on radio, what's his name, had said that Cardiff won't get more than 11 points. Chris Sutton,
yeah.
And he was totally disparaging about Cardiff and them about them getting into the Premier League and whatever. But Cardiff's a big city, big following, and there was never a game there that wasn't sold out. 35, and if they had 40,000 or 50,000 seats, they'd have sold them out as well. That's how big Cardiff is and can be. But Emilio Sala was when myself and Neil had gone over in November to have a look at him. And what happened was we'd gone into the Premier League. We'd only spent £20 million. And the first game of the season was Bournemouth away. And they'd signed a lad called Lerma in midfield for £31 million. And we'd spent £20 million on the whole of the team coming up to the Premier League. And quite a few chairmen spoke to Neil, and they said, "Listen, Neil, you need to spend 40 million and have a 10 million budget for at Christmas, because if you've got a chance of staying up, you might need another 10 million." And we got 20 million. That's what it was. And we tried to sign strikers and try to get. So anyway, we'd done all our due diligence, and at this time, in between the August and the January transfer window, we were looking at players that we think could do us a good job and whatever. Anyway, Sala was top of the goal scoring charts in Europe up until the November when Messi took over. But he was, above Messi for the goal scoring. And then we went over and watched him against Marseille at Nantes, and he scored 2 goals. One was a volley that was unbelievable and a diving header. And we said, "Listen, he didn't have a lot to do in the game. Marseille, a top French side, and Nantes had been struggling a little bit, but he'd done enough to say, listen, if he just converts 1 or 2 of those chances, we've got a chance. It's points." We go down, and we go down by just, I think it's 1 point. Brighton stay up above us. I can't help but feel that in the 21 games that was available to Emiliano, that he wouldn't have scored 1 or 2 goals. And I feel that the loss of Emiliano was also one of the big reasons why we went down, because he could score goals. He didn't need to score. We took Omar Niassi from Everton, who couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo. I think Emiliano Sala would have definitely taken some of the chances that he had. Emiliano would have took it. Now, the tragedy of it was that Emiliano was with us on the Friday, and we were playing Newcastle, and we said he was doing a medical, passed the medical. We said, come with us to Newcastle. And he said, "Look, I've got to look after, sort the dog out and see, someone to say goodbye to." So we said, "Fair enough, all right, get on your way home." And he went on his way home. And then obviously the rest is history. He came back that night, and I got a phone call on the Monday night at 11:15 at night, and I'm here, and it's Neil. He said, "He's gone." And I said, "Who's gone?" Emiliano. "Oh, who's?" I thought someone had gazumped us and nicked him. He said, "No, his plane's dropped off the radar." Well, you could have just... I was really just unbelievable. And of course, it all snowballed from there. And sure enough, it was the biggest talking point, and even to the point where it's been on the news. I think it was 3 weeks ago they were talking about it. So
shook
it was
the whole
an absolute
footballing world.
Oh, I mean, the amount of people. I mean, like when they asked for crowdfunding to raise the plane, you know, Mbappe and all the top players all put money in. I put money in. I wanted to put money in for him. I wanted him to come back. And yeah, it was just that. So the morning, so we couldn't train that following day, and we said, look, we'll see the lads on the Thursday. And you sort of came down, and the lads were warming up on the left-hand side. I remember coming down with a couple of coaches, and I was saying, Emiliano should be there. He should be there warming up with them now. But he wasn't. And the whole, what did it do to the, it was just a sad time. And we couldn't, whatever we did, we couldn't get away from it. So every time we went to a club, there was a tribute to him. So we went to Arsenal, there was a tribute to Emiliano there. There was a tribute at home. There was the scars outside the grounds. Then there was the talk about they couldn't find. It went on and on and on, and we could never break away from it. And it was always there. But still the players battled through to a degree. And, you know, I look back at the Chelsea game where I think the decisions by the referee where Azpilicueta is about 4 yards offside. I mean, it's just, and everybody in football knows it. That game's cost us relegation. But basically, Emiliano would have, for me, I think he'd have got 2 or 3, 4 goals. And I think that could have been enough. So it was a massive loss. But no more than his family lost him.
It was a sad time. And then obviously Cardiff, yourself and Neil and the rest of the team have obviously left Cardiff now. Yeah,
the following season started and we knew that we had to change things around again. You know, they had a great season in the Premier League in terms of finances, but for whatever reason, the chairman wanted to. He'd been badly stung the first time they went up 5-6 years ago. He spent a lot of money, and they came straight down, and the team struggled. And I think he thought that was the same situation. So he thought, well, if I'm going up, I'm not going to spend any money. I'm going to keep the money this time, and he has done. But we knew the team was actually quite strong. And we left them with 4 points outside of the playoffs. And it was only because we felt that we couldn't take the club under his leadership any further. And it was pointless then. We'd had a great time there. We'd had 3 great years. We'd hardly, you know, even in the Premier League, we'd hardly lost many games. Even in the Premier League. I mean, so we took them from, I think, 3rd from bottom and finished, I think it was 7th in the 8th or something like that in the first year. And then into automatic promotion. So we had a great time, and we didn't really want to spoil it there. And we felt that if we left now, we could always, you know, come back to the club with our head held high. And so we said, look, the point will come at this next transfer window, and we agreed that we would leave. That's how it was. It wasn't the sacking. It was agreed that we would leave. And like I say, up until this coronavirus thing, I think there were 3 points against off the playoffs with 10 games to go. So. And I felt that, and I always said, because we had made quite a few signings, that I always thought the second half of the season would be Cardiff's second half of the season. And that's exactly what was starting to transpire.
I can see you still got a lot of enthusiasm for the game and kind of reliving the moments. But it just begs the question, what's next?
Well, at the moment, I'm an expert witness. I'm doing things for insurance companies on players who are claiming millions and millions of pounds in compensation for injuries that they think could have curtailed in their careers. And I'm looking at their careers. So I'm doing that. I went to Switzerland to advise a club on their development of the club. I did a big project for a Premier League club, showing them how to integrate international clubs. So from that point of view, that's been very interesting. And the next job, well, who knows? The fact is, in football, from one day to the next, you're nothing, and for the following days after that, you're a hero.
Yeah.
And so, you know, some jobs come along where you least expect it, and all of a sudden the phone rings and it says, "Listen, we need you to do a job." So you hope there is, but if it isn't, then myself and Neil have had an astonishing career.
Yeah.
He has the record of 9 promotions, of which I've been part of 8 of them. So either as a player or as a coach. Assistant manager. So yeah, we've had some, you know, incredible times, and I look back on it now and when we first started talking, we talked about education, and I felt that I missed out on them. But when I look back now at the end of this talk, if I hadn't thought football, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now.
Yeah, that's true.
Really appreciate your time sitting here and speaking to us, Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us on the Soccer Sofa.
Yeah,
It's an
thank
absolute
you.
privilege to have you back on, and we look
Pleasure.
forward to seeing you back in the game.
Cheers, gentlemen. Thank you
Very
very
much
much.
so.